The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count, presented by BetMGM, the college football show for college football fans that give out the king-size candy for Halloween. Not any of those like little bite-size mini stuff you're working with. In this economy, we're getting out the king-size stuff when it comes to trick-or-treaters. Appreciate y'all being dialed in. It is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. Last one on the face of the planet. Gonna make it a great one. Unfortunately now, it is teed up to not be some good ones for a couple of coaches across the college football world here in the not-too-distant future. We'll unpack that. But it was a bad one previously for Billy Napier. That job is open in Gainesville. And if you're keeping things locked in over on the On3 website and keeping things locked into everything Pete Nakos has given you when it comes to the intel side of things, then you know there are a couple of names that are starting to separate from the pack, at least at this point in the Florida head coaching search. So we'll break that down right now. There is a top 3 that seems to be developing. Now, this thing moves quick, fast, in a hurry. This could change tomorrow, but as of right now, Pete Nakos put out an article talking about the names to know and timelines to watch for the Florida head coaching job, and there are 3 names that are starting to separate. Now, there is one name that is at the top, and there's 2 others that I'm going to go ahead and rank these in order of what I think the likelihood is that they end up being the guy in Gainesville, just going off gut feel, fit, how much it makes sense, and all that. So before we do that, 1, make sure you're subscribed. If you're a college football sicko or you're a Florida fan just hoping and praying you land Lane Kiffin, make sure you're locked in right here because we're talking college football all year round. We're talking this Florida opening as long as it's relevant, and then we'll talk about who you hire here going forward. So here's the deal. According to Pete Nakos of On3, Florida is going to hire someone that is currently a sitting head coach at the P4 level. So we already addressed this. It's not going to be the next hotshot coordinator. It's not going to be the next G5 head coach. They're going after a top dog, and all these names that we're going to talk about right now currently are head coaches elsewhere, 2 of them in the SEC. Now, this is not breaking news, but it has more or less been confirmed that Lane Kiffin is the top target for the folks in Gainesville, and it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, if Kiffin wants it, you're hiring him. It's the aura. It's the offensive acumen. It's what DJ Lagway could be in that offense. It's the fact that if you hired Lane Kiffin, you feel pretty good about your chances to keep DJ Lagway. It's what he's done at Ole Miss. It's the roster math of, well, if he did what he's doing at Ole Miss, winning double-digit football games with their resources, heck, we're not talking down on Ole Miss necessarily, or maybe you are if you're a Florida fan, but our firepower from a resources perspective, that logo when you walk into any given high school across America and you're recruiting with that behind you, Lane Kiffin, you could do some damage, brother. So there's that whole thought behind it. Here's the tricky thing. Ole Miss right now has 1 loss. By nature of how Ole Miss is trending, they could very well be in the college football playoff. Now, Ole Miss makes the playoff and goes on a deep run here. That transfer portal opens up January 2nd. So the logic we're trying to work through here is when that portal opens up, not just are you missing out on the opportunity of going and getting talent out of the portal if you haven't hired Lane Kiffin at that point in time and Ole Miss is still playing football games in the college football playoff, you also run the risk of letting guys on your roster leave your roster when that portal opens up and you don't have a head coach. So that's one thing to work through here. Here's the biggest snag in my mind that I'm trying to figure out when it comes to Lane Kiffin and his prospects of being the next guy in Gainesville. Can you get him to leave Ole Miss? Can you get him to leave Ole Miss? And that's a big question. It's a simple question. There's a lot of layers to it, though. Because at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin is the guy. And he'd be the guy in Gainesville, but he'd be the guy. I have to think with a couple of other guys around him helping him make decisions. I don't think it's quite that layered at Ole Miss. I think Lane Kiffin gets what he wants when it comes to making decisions at a roster level. He gets decisions when it comes to the portal. Like, Lane Kiffin has a ton of autonomy at Ole Miss. Is that the case in Gainesville? I don't know if it isn't, but I think that's something that needs to be worked through and something that I think is only Lane Kiffin can answer when it comes to the idea of the Florida job and if he wants to take that or not. Also, just a little sprinkle on top of this, too. His daughter's still currently at Ole Miss. How much does that play into his desire to leave Oxford? Neither here nor there. Now, this is not confirmed to be like the next candidate in line for Florida, but how I'm processing this, he makes the next most amount of sense when it comes to the job at Florida, and that's Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, a guy we've already talked about. And yeah, if you're a Florida fan, he's not your first choice. In fact, according to my Twitter mentions, he's not the second, third, fourth, or fifth choice for a lot of those folks. But here's the deal. He makes a lot of sense. I think he is Lane Kiffin with a lot of the same upsides, but maybe a little bit less noise. Like Eli Drinkwitz has some of the Kiffinisms about himself, going to talk trash, a guy who's proven he knows how to score points when it comes to what they've done offensively at Missouri. But he doesn't have quite the same presence when it comes to Twitter and the trolling and all that. So maybe you love that about Lane Kiffin, but Eli Drinkwitz has that just maybe at a diet version, if you will. He's built for modern college football, is Eli Drinkwitz, the same way that Lane Kiffin is. Eli Drinkwitz has recruited at Missouri. He's also killed it via the portal. A lot of the top guys at Missouri right now, they got via the portal, from a Bo Prabula to Ahmad Hardy to Zion Young. They have crushed it in the portal. Damon Wilson, another guy who's going to ball out here from Missouri this Saturday against Vanderbilt. He knows how to build a program. Not program. So what he would do at Florida, I think the upside and all those things that he's done already throughout this point in his career, that's what excites me. And so if you can't get Kiffin to leave Ole Miss, I understand that the thought here is, well, he's our backup. JD, by the nature of this conversation. A lot of good backups throughout sports history. Tom Brady was a backup. Tony Romo was a backup. I'm just saying, if you get Eli Drinkwitz, he may not be everything you want, but I think he still checks a lot of boxes when it comes to what you need, when it comes to keeping that roster intact. Now, Missouri, same deal. They could be a team that makes the playoff, and you have that same discussion we just had with Ole Miss of, well, if he's still playing games and the portal opens up, what does that mean? Here's my big question when it comes to the whole thing working at Florida if you do get Eli Drinkwitz. Can you get past the fact that he's not Lane Kiffin? Because I think for a lot of people, at the first sign of lack of success, to put it simply, like whenever you have that first loss in a coach's first year and it's not everything that you thought it would be, when the press conference is over and the preseason projections are behind you, are you able to live with the fact that he's not Lane Kiffin? Because you're going to see Lane Kiffin continue to do great things at Ole Miss. I feel like that's pretty straightforward. What he's doing at Ole Miss, if he doesn't leave for Florida, he will keep on winning at Ole Miss. And so it's going to be very easy now if Florida has a rocky start at any point in time, giving Eli Drinkwitz as the head coach, and Ole Miss is doing what Ole Miss is doing, it's going to be very easy to say, well, we should have got that guy. Instead, we got Diet Lane Kiffin, and here we are. So can you get past that if you hire Eli Drinkwitz is my question when it comes to that whole discussion. Now, the third candidate that I want to unpack together, and to me is probably number 3 in this, again, my own rankings when it comes to the names that are separating relative to this job, Jeff Brom at Louisville has emerged as one of those top names when it comes to this job. And I've been on record before saying I think he's like the ACC's Lane Kiffin. Scores points, a little quiet moxie about himself. If you haven't YouTubed Jeff Brom XFL interview, go do that after you watch this show because it's nothing but greatness. Is a football guy through and through, has some edge about himself. Not quite as vocal as a Kiffin or a Drinkwitz, but still kind of has that, I think, confidence that you would need as a head coach at Florida. He's a quarterback whisperer, which is the thing that I love the most about him. Look at the quarterbacks he's had and the way he's elevated them. Tyler Shuck had his best year ever at Louisville. Got drafted in the top 3 rounds of the NFL draft after playing for Jeff Brom. That's not a coincidence. Tyler Shuck is talented. He got the most out of himself by playing for a one Jeff Brom. And I don't know how DJ Lagway compares to a Tyler Shuck from a skill set perspective, but my eyeballs tell me DJ Lagway probably has a little bit more in the tank there when it comes to overall natural ability. So that paired with Brom, I think would be really nice. A guy who already told you knows how to work the portal. He's done it at a high level. It feels like every single year at Louisville. They go get 20-plus portal guys. They re-rack the whole roster, and they have the same on-field product that is one of the better products in the ACC. If you don't think beating Miami matters, it's something Billy Napier was never able to do at Florida. Jeff Brom just did it with a lesser caliber roster than Billy Napier ever had at Florida with Louisville this past weekend on Friday night in Miami. So if that's the appetizer, I'd be excited to see what he could do for the entree if you were to give him more firepower behind him to go get a top-tier roster at Florida in the SEC. Now, that's the question here. Are you okay with the fact that he's never coached in the SEC before? Because I understand the ACC and where Billy Napier came from are two different things, but people were very quick to point to that as being a reason for Billy Napier not being successful in the minds of fans. Now, does that actually have anything to do with it, that Billy Napier never coached in the SEC before? I don't really think so. He had coached in the SEC before at Alabama as a receivers coach, so just take of that as you will. But I do think that if Jeff Brom has a rocky start at Florida, if he gets there and you lose a game or two, people are going to be very quick to say, doesn't get the SEC. See, he's not cut out for it. Look at this. I don't know. Can you get past that? If you can, you're in good shape. Now, if I had to bet money, I still feel like Drinkwitz ends up getting the job. Again, no intel, no inside information here. I'm just operating off my opinion. I think Lane Kiffin being such a runaway top candidate for this job, by nature of how these coaching searches seem to unfold, I think that Ole Miss will do everything in their power to throw the Brinks truck at him and keep him in Oxford. And Eli Drinkwitz, I think he wants the job. And I think he is the next most likely candidate. So when it comes to whoever takes this job, make sure you understand whether it's Kiffin, whether it's Drinkwitz, whether it's Brom, whether it's someone else. And go read the article from Pete Nakos because he mentions a bunch of other names. These are just the top three. If it's someone else, you're walking into a spot where the expectation is to go win national championships. That's a different level of pressure than I think any of these coaches have ever dealt with. At Missouri, if you make the playoff, you're getting the statue built for you. Same deal at Ole Miss. Same deal at Louisville. If you make the playoff at Florida as the new head coach, it's like, great, well, how many national titles have you won us? The expectations and the pressure around this job are a little bit different. Can you handle that? So the overall competitive makeup of any of these guys or somebody else is going to be crucial to being successful when you do get this job in Gainesville. The press conference ends, the parade is finished, and you actually go out there and play football games. That's going to be something that I think will be a massive determining factor to the success for whoever's the next guy out there at Florida. But let me know your thoughts. I understand you don't want Drinkwitz. I've heard you loud and clear. You want Kiffin. Heck, I think Kiffin will be awesome there. If you get Kiffin, that's a home run for you. But are you willing to commit to that experience when you get Lane Kiffin? Different conversation for a different time. But again, let me know who you want and who you think is going to be the next guy out there in Gainesville. So Florida's looking for a new head coach. By nature of the way things are trending, Auburn may be looking for a new head coach. How hot is the seat right now for Hugh Freeze? The buyout for him, for those of y'all that are curious, right around $15 million. James Franklin just got, or is going to get rather, north of $49 million for leaving the job at Penn State. So you compare that to $15 million. Okay, I think that's probably something that's workable. To put this simply, the seat is hot for him at Auburn right now. Talking to folks that are in the know with that sort of thing. Auburn is far too talented to be 0-4 in the SEC. Again. Keyword, again. It's not year 2 or year 1 where you're still trying to build your roster and clean up Brian Harson's mess. It's year 3. Year 3 is the point in time where you actually have your name written next to the culture of your team, the personnel of your team. You're accountable for your team in year 3 is how I would perceive it. Now, where we are currently in the context of that seat being hot, talking to people that are familiar with the situation, the feeling is if he loses to Arkansas on Saturday, Hugh Freeze that is, probably game, set, match. Now, the timeline of that has to do with how they lose to Arkansas. Now, I want to go on record. I have picked Auburn to win the football game. I hope Hugh Freeze keeps this job. Hugh Freeze has been nothing but good to us on this show, but this is kind of the place we find ourselves in. If they get blown out by Arkansas, or it's a convincing Arkansas win, it's probably a thing where he gets fired on Sunday. Is the feel around it. Now, if it's a walk-off field goal and there's a bad PI call and Auburn falls 27-24 in Fayetteville, then it's a thing where, hey, listen, this thing is probably going to be done for Hugh Freeze long-term at Auburn, but I don't know if we're having this whole firing conversation on Sunday. Still could, but it feels less likely. Now, if he wins on Saturday, the plot thickens, you see how it goes, and you play the games that you have left on the schedule so far as you survive and advance to the next week. Now, I want to make sure that we address this part of it. There are, according to Justin Hokanson, who does phenomenal work for Auburn Live, the On3 site for us regarding Auburn sports and Auburn athletics, he put a post out on their board and basically said, listen, not everyone's out on Hugh Freeze. That's a decision maker relative to firing Hugh Freeze. There's a lot of people that understand a couple of those calls in the Georgia game were not ideal. The Oklahoma call, heck, the SEC came out and said it shouldn't have happened and there should have been a penalty on that play. So there's been some crucial calls for Auburn, or rather against Auburn, that have caused these games to break different directions, at least the momentum to break different directions. You know how I feel about that. I think at this point in time for Auburn, it shouldn't be about the calls. But by nature of how this whole discussion is going around Hugh Freeze, the people in charge think that those still maybe had something to do with where Auburn is currently in the context of this season. So there's still some people that support Hugh Freeze that could decide on firing Hugh Freeze, to put it simply. Now, I'm curious to see, or curious to learn rather, where Jimmy Rain is on this whole thing. Jimmy Rain is the richest man in Alabama. And if Auburn wants to fire Hugh Freeze, they probably can do so with that $15 million buyout on their own. But whoever you hire next, you probably need Jimmy Rain in the boat on that one. And so just a food for thought here. Just Jimmy Rain will, I think, have some way, shape, or form an impact on this whole decision when it comes to Hugh Freeze if he ends up being your guy after this Saturday if you lose to Arkansas. So what do you do next? If you do fire Hugh Freeze, you pay that $15 million. The feeling is DJ Durkin probably gets the interim tag, but you probably also go and hire somebody from the outside. John Summerall is a name that I was told to make some sense. We'll see what happens there. Here's my opinion on this, though. I don't understand why, with all the discussion around Hugh Freeze's job security, we're talking about playing Ashton Daniels. And this is not a take where I'm down on Ashton Daniels. I think if he gives you a spark and wins you football games, more power to you. But didn't Billy Napier just keep his job a year ago because he played DJ Lagway? Now you say, well, JD, yeah, DJ Lagway had a lot of success. That's why he kept his job. Yeah, 100% true. But what if Deuce Knight goes in the game against Arkansas, plays well enough to make you feel excited about what he could be long-term on the Plains? The understanding when Billy Napier was the head coach last year and DJ Lagway was playing the way that he played, it was like if you fire Billy Napier, you run the risk of losing who DJ Lagway is. And at that point in time, the excitement around DJ Lagway and his future was tremendous. If Deuce Knight goes out there and looks like a five-star quarterback and has the same kind of effect that DJ Lagway had, re-energizes the team, you see some pop moments that make you feel like he could be a guy for you there for a while, do you really want to run the risk of firing the guy that brought that future star to your program? I don't think so. So I understand that we're talking about Ashton Daniels getting more reps and all those things with Jackson Arnold, but that's just something that I'm curious to keep a pulse on here as this weekend progresses and as Auburn goes out there and plays Arkansas. Now, here's the unfortunate reality. We're talking about hot seat stuff for Hugh Freeze. We're talking about what happens against Arkansas and if that changes the timeline for him. How many times do we see head coaches get off the hot seat when it's as hot as it is right now for Hugh Freeze? Like, if we're talking about one game making the difference for you, do we really think that 2 games can make the difference for Hugh Freeze if he goes out and wins 2? Or if they go out and win a couple to finish the season? Like, does 7-5 make you feel great about next year for Hugh Freeze? And this isn't even my opinion anymore. This is just purely where we're at. The only coach that I can remember having a seat that was this temperature and then bouncing back and having massive success was Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, and that is a massive anomaly. I think the fact that we're this far down the road of talking about Hugh Freeze staying the head coach at Auburn, to me feels like the writing is pretty clearly on the wall. Now, maybe that writing's in pencil and not Sharpie, but the wall is marked up either way. And with the wall marked up the way that it is for Hugh Freeze, it feels like this thing is a matter of when, not so much if. Okay, now the if could be a lot more definitive here relative to what could happen on Saturday, but that's kind of where we are right now with Hugh Freeze. Some of that's my opinion. A lot of that's the reports when it comes to how he's being perceived right now internally at Auburn. But again, get a membership to Auburn Live, the Auburn On 3 site. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good intel there that will keep you up to the know around the clock. All right, so make sure you're locked in there. All right, so we did this last Thursday. Caught some good flack on it. I think some of that maybe was the social graphic that made its way around social media. The eye test top 5 is back, baby. These are not rankings when it comes to our nothing but ball rankings we do on Sunday. After the games finish, we give you our ranking for each team in the top 11 plus a G5 rep. This is not that. This is purely what my eyeballs are telling me after watching football all year long. These, to me, are the top 5 teams that look the best, because you know that college football playoff selection show is going to arrive here in 2 weeks' time, which is wow, we're already at that point, and they're going to say things like, well, they have this resume and this data point, but what does the eye test say? I'm going to tell you what my eye test says right now. Disclaimer, this is not a prediction tool. We already gave you our preseason predictions, gave you our midseason predictions. This is not a prediction tool. This is just up to this point. This is what I'm seeing from these teams. Last week, had Miami and Texas Tech number 1 and 2 in the eye test rankings and got flamed for it on Sunday and Monday. And I was like, yeah, obviously Miami's not number 1 in my eye test rankings anymore because my eyeballs hadn't seen them, looked the way they looked against Louisville and seen Carson Beck throw 4 picks. It is what it is. Number 5 in the eye test top 5, the Oregon Ducks. Now, Jake from the county is going to hit you up and say, but Indiana, but Penn State looks awful now. Tell him to just quiet down a little bit and actually watch some college football games. What do your eyes tell you? My eyes tell me when Oregon's out there, outside of the Indiana game, they're pretty dominant. Even against Penn State, they had a spot where they're in a wideout. Penn State has everything to play for, and the majority of that game was controlled by Oregon. Now, Penn State fought back and made that a phenomenal finish when it came to overtime and all those things, but Oregon's been, for the most part, outside of one game, relatively dominant. Here's some scores for you. 69-3, 41-7, 56-10. Don't we value a good old-fashioned teeth kicking anymore? Oregon is number 1 in America when it comes to margin of victory. Also, the Indiana game, let's be real here. That game was tied late. Now, did Indiana control that football game for the most part? Absolutely. But let's not just dismiss what Oregon's done at this point in the year because they lost to Indiana at home and Penn State turned out to not be all that great. I think Oregon still looks like one of the top 5 teams in college football. They are in my top 5 personally when it comes to our Nothing But Ball rankings, and my eyes tell me they're also a top 5 team in the country relative to how they look on the grass, all right? So, Oregon at 5 in our eye test rankings. At number 4, Texas A&M. When it comes to you just watching them play ball, I don't know how you'd have questions about them at this point in time in terms of ways they can win games. Rock fight, yep, against Auburn, won that way. Slow start, only play well in 2 quarters, the last 2 quarters, that is. Mississippi State won that football game. Wear you down kind of game. Florida did it that way. Shootout kind of game. Notre Dame, Arkansas won that way. No further questions, Your Honor. With the way they've won these games, the different styles they've won these games, the personnel they have, and the way they win these games that steps up at different points in time, A&M, there's not a style of game they can't play and win. And it's not me just saying that and projecting that based on the personnel they have. And, oh, yeah, well, if they get into a shootout, Marshall Reed's really good. No, we've seen it with our own 2 Ojos, okay? So A&M at 4 in the eye test rankings. Feel pretty confident with where they're at to this point in time with the body of work we've seen. And number 3, how about Indiana? It's not just the fact that they're undefeated. That's a big part of this. But they're so balanced in how they beat you and how they can beat you because they're a 60% of the time run the football team. That's legit. That's not window dressing and a bunch of different quarterback read option stuff. That's like downhill, inside zone, man scheme stuff. Hemby over and over again. They are top 25 in America when it comes to rushing offense. It's the real deal. Go ahead and ask Oregon about that. And Oregon's got a good defensive line. Now, to go with that, you have a first-round caliber quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. Next to him, you have a Biletnikoff caliber kind of receiver in Elijah Surratt. So you're going down the list here and looking at what they have on the offensive side. There's no kind of game that they can't play, similar to A&M. And there's that plus the way that they've proved it on the field. Went to Oregon and got a win there, which you already addressed. And then they turned around and beat the brakes off Michigan State. The competitive character to be able to win a game that's emotionally draining on the road and then turn around and win a game like that at home against a team that, quite frankly, could have got you if you didn't bring your best ball to the table. Indiana, it's all those things mixed together, plus the defensive line that gets after you. They were at one point in time top 3 in tackles for a loss, top 10 in sacks. Like Indiana, wagon, no further questions. They are number 3 in my eye test rankings. Now, number 2, I got Alabama. Alabama's not number 2 for a lot of people when it comes to their rankings overall, us included. But just watching them play ball the last couple of weeks, you can't argue with results. Can't argue with results. 4 ranked wins their last 4 games. 2 of those on the road. One of those was snapping the longest home winning streak in college football when they beat Georgia. A quarterback who's just on another level right now, and they just held a top 10 offense in college football to 20 points in Tennessee. Dominant. since that Florida State game, the way that they've approached it has been, to me, in a dominant fashion. Now, the scoreboard hasn't been dominant. They've been in some tight games. But even the fact they've won in tight games, to me, makes me feel real good about what Bama can be. And here's the thing, too. Like Kalen DeBoer said on our show yesterday when we did the Coach Translator, their best ball is still in front of them. They're still working on putting together 4 quarters of good ball. They've had a couple of first quarters where I'm like, hey, is Vandy going to do this? Hey, Missouri, that first drive was cinematic. Is it going to be all day long like that? They're still getting better. They have room to improve. I think they will. Bama, as of right now, not a predicting tool, but as of right now, Alabama looks like the second best team in America based on the eye test. Now, number one in this ranking for us, in our Nothing But Ball rankings, I think for anybody that's watched football to this point in the year, it's Ohio State, right? You tell me, actually, how you would go about beating Ohio State. Because you're not scoring on them. Giving up less than a touchdown a game. Number one in America when it comes to third down conversion allowed on the defensive side. 20%, which is just stupid. You're not rattling their first-year starting quarterback anymore. He just went for 393 against Wisconsin. He's gotten better and better every single week. You're not beating those receivers in a track meet if you got to go score for score with them, if you somehow do find a way to score. Like, they're just at another level. That Death Star, with how Ohio State's rolling right now, is fully operational. And here's the thing, too, with Julian Sayin continuing to progress, they're a runaway train. Like, that dude pulling the trigger with those receivers, with that defense, offensive line wasn't, like, dominant against Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's actually halfway decent up front. They made a point to throw the ball in that game, though. So I'm not worried about the O-line. I'm not worried about the running back room. I've seen it before be good enough in different spots, Texas game included. Ohio State, the number one team when it comes to the eye test rankings at this point through the college football season. So to recap it here, at 5, I got Oregon. Messing with the Indiana, Penn State talk, my eyes tell me what's going on. Indiana is a good football team, and Oregon, playing them close in the second half should count for something, but the other wins they have count just as much in my mind, with them being at number 5 in our rankings. Number 4, A&M. Number 3, Indiana. Number 2, Alabama, and they still have more in front of them. And number 1, Ohio State. I don't know how you beat them, man, but they are rolling right now, and they are number 1 in my eye test, top 5, through 8 weeks of the college football season. So we're 8 weeks in, past the halfway point. A little bit dark for your boy, the fact that we're already staring down the barrel of November football here around the corner, which is just bizarre and wild that the season's already at this point. But we still got a great Week 9 slate, and one of the best games of Week 9 is LSU and Texas A&M. We already gave you a preview and prediction. We already told you who we think is going to win this football game, but I want to dig a little deeper on this game together and talk about maybe what's being missed, what's not being said, what narrative is incorrect relative to these two teams getting after it. Let's start with LSU. What's the headline take? LSU back against the wall. LSU offense didn't look great. LSU can't find a way to run the football. Brian Kelly, look out for his post-game press conference. He may smash a table through with his fist if they lose against Texas A&M. Getting sped up here, JD. Calm down. It's all good. It's college football. Let's relax a little bit here. The headline is that LSU's got their back against the wall, and it's totally fair. But what's being missed is the fact that this game, if LSU wins, it may not make any sense. Like, it may not be a thing that we can see coming at this point in time. Like, I've got people in Baton Rouge that are picking LSU to lose this football game. Death Valley at night, A&M's going to come in there and beat them is what some people are saying. That have LSU ties. If LSU wins, it's going to be tough to quantify, I think, in the box score. But when you zoom out even further and look at almost the variables that aren't going to be on the field in this game for LSU. Tiger Stadium at night. The fact that this is a desperate LSU team. The fact that A&M has had a couple of games that are emotionally draining. Like, it may not be a thing where you point to the box score, but that might be the kind of game that LSU wins. And we'll sit here on Sunday, and we'll be happy for LSU, but you'll ask me to break it down, and I'm like, I don't know how they found a way to run the football against that A&M defense. Like, there was nothing going into that game that suggested that was going to be the case. So it may not make sense, and that's why college football is a beautiful thing. That's something that's not being talked about nearly enough when it comes to LSU in this spot. Now for Texas A&M, what's not being talked about with them? What narrative is incorrect for them? The narrative is the A&M offense is explosive, and that's correct. The narrative is that they've got playmakers. That's also correct. But what's being missed, I think, relative to A&M in this game is the fact that I think you need Marcel Reed's legs to play a pretty big factor to move the ball how you expect to move the ball against the LSU defense. Like, LSU is actually pretty decent against the run. The teams that have gotten them on the ground have had quarterbacks have good days running the football. Trinidad Chambliss went for 70 yards. Diego Pavia went for north of 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was how LSU got off balance. That was how the aggression of LSU got used against them. You saw it multiple times. Corner off the edge or a blitz from the edge of the defense, period. Diego Pavia feels it, steps up. There's a gap there. He takes off, takes advantage of it. Why? Because of the instincts, because of the athleticism, because of the fact that if you swing and miss from a blitz perspective, you got a quarterback now that you're not accounting for. If that blitz misses, because the blitz you're accounting for tackling your quarterback in that specific spot. So LSU against running backs have actually been halfway decent when it comes to defending their production on the ground. There was a run for Vanderbilt that kind of skewed their overall box score. I think it was like a 40-plus yard run that kind of tweaked the overall production for running backs against the LSU defense. But for the most part, they've been pretty solid. If Marcel Reed can run the football, guess what? Everything is open. It's all open. At that point, you divide the defense up. At that point, Ruben Owens gets going. At that point, the safeties have to be a little bit extra aware of what Marcel Reed's doing on the ground, which means that they have less attention on what's going on behind them. All those things become unlocked with Marcel Reed's legs. So is there a world where Marcel Reed just throws the ball great and they win this game? Sure. Is there a world where Ruben Owens just has a big day on the ground and they win the game? Sure. But I think the more likely option is it is a family affair for the A&M offense, and a big part of that is Marcel Reed's mobility, and a big reason why A&M would score points on LSU. So LSU, game may not make sense if you win it, and you're more than fine with that. A&M, it's going to go through Marcel Reed's legs for you to have success offensively, is my bet heading into that game. So that's one game we've got to talk about for Week 9. Let's talk about this one, though. Oklahoma and Ole Miss. Again, gave you our prediction, gave you our preview. But what's being missed in that one? For Oklahoma, the headline is Mateer's getting healthy. Hey, you found a way to run the football with someone not named John Mateer last weekend, and that was awesome. It was South Carolina, but you take it how you can get it. What's not being talked about is the opportunity in the passing game here, I think, for Jaren Kanak. Jaren Kanak, tight end that was playing linebacker a year ago for Oklahoma. Dude's got real deal speed, can puncture a defense in a big way. I'm looking at that game for Ole Miss against Georgia. Lawson Lucky had 3 touchdowns. Now, Lawson Lucky's a different kind of tight end than Jaren Kanak, but same sort of skill set when it comes to speed, stretch the defense, tough to deal with in zone. Like, I think the middle of the field here could be cash money for Jaren Kanak, especially if you have something on the ground to go with it and command a little bit of attention for those safeties and linebackers. Jaren Kanak could have a big day and kind of have the X-factor effect when it comes to Oklahoma winning this football game. Also, not nearly being talked about enough, how much of a challenge this is going to be for Trinidad Chambliss when it comes to playing against the Oklahoma defense. Like, Trinidad Chambliss, I'm not going to do the whole thing where we say, oh, he played D2 a year ago. Oh, it's going to be such a tough task for him going on the road. Like, Georgia's a good football team. Georgia's a tough environment. But understand now, he has not seen a defense near the caliber of Oklahoma, LSU included. And LSU's a good defense too. But the fact that you're on the road and the fact that it's a team that's number 1 in America when it comes to sacking the quarterback, the sack rate that is, 14% of the time, like, this Oklahoma defense is going to heat up Trinidad Chambliss. And so what we've seen from this point has been solid, but I just think we have to account for the fact that this is going to be a different caliber of test, different subject of test for Trinidad Chambliss. Been doing fine in English, fine in math. How you doing when we give you thermodynamics kind of exams, Trinidad? We'll find out. That'll be a lot of fun. Now, in the same vein of that, the headline for Ole Miss is Trinidad Chambliss is balling, and how much of a difficult matchup it's going to be for them to run the football and all those things. But I think we're missing the fact that this Ole Miss offense is actually built to beat the pressure that Oklahoma's going to apply here. Like, you watched the broadcast against Georgia. They had that stopwatch on Trinidad Chambliss when it came to snap to getting the football out. It was right around 2 seconds. Like, they're not going to try to drop back and just bomb this Oklahoma defense. They're going to try to catch, rock, throw, win pre-snap, know we're going with the football before we even call the cadence. Like, it's going to be a world where you try and win against this Oklahoma defense because they brought pressure. So a lot of that will fall on Trinidad Chambliss being able to understand where Oklahoma's disguising, where they're bluffing, and digesting all of that. But if he's seeing the picture clearly, as intense as that pressure is going to be from Oklahoma on the defensive side, there's going to be real estate if he knows where to go with the football. There's going to be weak points to strain for Ole Miss. So that's big for Kiffin, that's big for Trinidad Chambliss, and that's something to keep an eye on. In addition to that, the pass game is one part of this. Think about the way that the run game operates for Ole Miss. What is it? Eye candy, window dressing, get a defense thinking we're doing one thing, we go back the other way. That is even more effective when you have a team that brings pressure like Oklahoma does. So I'm not suggesting that Oklahoma is going to get just torn up by Trinidad, Chambliss, and Kiffin, but I am saying there's a couple of plays here where if you don't get home properly, there's not a lot behind you for Oklahoma to make a tackle if you swing and miss from a blitz perspective and Keywan laces out the back door on an inside zone that went the other direction, but you bid on the jet sweep the other way. A lot of plays there. So the only play caller that has been the same caliber of Lane Kiffin that Brent Venables has faced at this point in the year, for my money, is Steve Sarkisian. And we told you, we think Steve Sarkisian, the idea of him giving up play calling in Texas is ridiculous. Neither here nor there. I think that what we saw from Steve Sarkisian against Brent Venables should serve as just a thought going into this game of how successful they were able to be with misdirection, with getting them off balance. And I think Trinidad Chambliss, unfortunately for Texas fans, is better than Arch Manning. And I think that Lane Kiffin, ultimately, using that Steve Sarkisian tape, might have a couple of things up his sleeve. So just keep a pulse on that, but that's what's being missed when it comes to Oklahoma and Ole Miss ahead of this Saturday. So I told y'all, man, we do our very best to be a show of the people. So when you get in the comment section on the show and say, hey, I want to see a prediction for X, Y, and Z game, if there's enough momentum behind that and it makes sense for us to do it, we're going to give it to you. So Tennessee, Kentucky is a game I want to break down together here. Tennessee going to Kroger Field, 7:45 Eastern, SEC Network. The Vols, a 9.5-point road favorite here. All right. Tennessee, playoff mode is on, man. It's on. You already lost 2 games to Georgia and Bama last weekend. You got to win out to make the college football playoff. Now, you can do that, but if you stumble on the road in a weird place to play that is Kroger Field, you can go ahead and kiss those playoff hopes goodbye. But, JD, we were 9-3, and we got 2 of those losses to 2 of the best teams in college football. Don't care. Club playoff, by nature of last year being our sample size, has a cutoff of 3 losses. Sorry, I'd love to get you in, but 9-3, it's kind of a deal breaker for us here at club playoff. So, playoff mode is on for Tennessee. Can you sustain the same energy you had early in the year down the stretch here? Remains to be seen. For Kentucky, my question is, do you believe in what you just did against Texas? Like, was that a Texas logo that came to your place and you played inspired football because you wanted to prove the world wrong and you wanted to make Arch Manning look bad and you wanted to do the whole horns down thing after the game? Or was it a thing where that was kind of your last gasp at things? Hey, you know what? It hasn't been a great year for us. People are always talking about Mark Stoops riding off into the sunset. A couple of guys via the portal here. Like, not a ton of ownership maybe in turn. Like, I'm asking. I'm genuinely asking the question. Because if you do what you did against Texas in this game against Tennessee, you're going to cover 9.5, and you're going to have a chance to make things really weird here in the second half for Tennessee fans that are watching at home. Big reason why Kentucky was successful against Texas, they controlled time of possession. 39 minutes of that game, Kentucky had the football. And it wasn't like they lit up the stat sheet. I mean, scored less than 20, both teams, overtime included. To do that again, you got to be able to recreate what you had in the underneath passing game. Kentucky's a run-first football team, but Cutter Boley now made a couple of plays against Texas where he's not stretching the field so much, but he is evading pressure, dumping the football off, keeping the chains moving, and again, most importantly, keeping the ball in Kentucky's hands. If you can live that way, you're going to have a chance. I think Seth McGowan is a good enough running back to have some moments in this game. Can you do what Mississippi State did to Tennessee? And Tennessee's got a good D-line. I don't know how that got out there that I said Tennessee had a bad front seven. That's not the case. They're a great front seven. Bad secondary, but that front seven's pretty solid. The Mississippi State run game, though, gave them some problems. Can Seth McGowan and Kentucky recreate that? If you can, again, that's how you stay in this football game. Now, my concern is that the matchup on the defensive side for Kentucky, relative to what Tennessee has, is going to be a tough task to accomplish here. What Kentucky wants to do is play zone coverage and bring pressure. What I'm hearing from Tennessee is, okay, there's going to be windows to throw to and less guys back there. Cool. We'll eat all day long. Now, maybe they adjust in this game. You'd expect that to be the case. But I don't love the idea of more open field downfield for Joey Aguilar to throw to. I don't think that's a way that you live. So you better get home if you're bringing pressure. You better create a tricky picture for him to look at pre-snap and get him off his keys, because if it becomes a matchup game, like I think it could, Tennessee's going to score a lot of points, and I don't like Cutter Boley chasing points there for Kentucky, the young quarterback out there. Should be noted, too, Cutter Boley, what he has running the football needs to be accounted for in this game, especially when it comes to extending drives and picking up third and short. There might be a couple of plays where, maybe Coach Banks has got it dialed up for Tennessee on the defensive side. Maybe Tim Banks calls the exact right defense, exact right pressure, but Cutter Boley steps out of it, steps underneath it maybe, 3rd and 3, gets a 4-yard gain, first down Kentucky, clock keeps moving, Joey Aguilar stays on the sideline, and that offense doesn't get to have the say on the football game that they wanted to going in. I don't know. Just food for thought here. So I think we might be able to tell how this game is going to go after the first quarter. Kentucky coming into this, was that your best swing against Texas? And now we're out of gas. We're feeling woe is me. And you could pair that now with the idea that maybe Tennessee's out there and they're angry. Lost to Bama, they're playoff mode. They're just seeing red. And that's kind of how this whole thing goes. And we're looking up at the scoreboard, 17-0 Tennessee at the end of one. We're like, oh boy, hold on tight. Over's probably going to cash. Joey Aguilar's going to have a day. Cutter Boley and that offense is not chasing 17 points against that offense in Tennessee. Or is it a world where you see that same last stand sort of vibe from Kentucky and you see them have some pride playing in Kroger Field and you see Tennessee have a bit of a Bama hangover? Just played Bama tough. Score was maybe a little bit more lopsided than the game actually was. Okay, now we pull up and it's Kentucky. Logo doesn't get us too fired up if we're on that sideline in Knoxville. Just go out there and go through the motions. If it's that kind of game, Kentucky could get you. And when I say get you, at the very least cover that spread and maybe win the game based on what they did a year ago when Ole Miss rolled in there. I don't know. Something to keep in mind. Now, here's the thing. I can't get past the trenches advantage for Tennessee. Like, I look at these numbers. Tennessee is number 11 in college football when it comes to their sack rate. Okay, well, what's Kentucky doing? They are 111th when it comes to their sack rate allowed. I told you, Cutter Boley going to have to make some plays off script here, but over the course of 4 quarters, Tennessee's going to get home a time or two. And so when that sets you back, it likely means the field position for Tennessee is going to be somewhat favorable. Favorable field position for Tennessee, paired with what Kentucky isn't doing stopping the run, makes me nervous. Say, JD, Kentucky's rushing numbers defensively aren't too bad. They're not great, but they're not egregious. Here's my thing. I think those numbers are a bit what we call in this show fugazi. All right, Kentucky, those rush numbers are fine, but you haven't played too many great teams when it comes to running the football. The 2 teams that you've played that are able to run the football are Ole Miss and Georgia. Ole Miss ran for 220. Georgia ran for $180. I'm not saying Tennessee is the same outfit as they are. They do it differently when it comes to their schematics. But I think Tennessee's going to be able to run the football against you. So all those things paired together with just the overall talent advantage Tennessee has, I'll take Tennessee to win. I'll take Tennessee to cover. Barring Kroger Field doing what Kroger Field does and making things weird for you, I think Tennessee wins the football game 31-20, so Vols win, Vols cover in Lexington. Now, one more game to break down that y'all also asked for was Texas going to Starkville. Speaking of tough places to play, you got Kroger Field, you got Davis Wade Stadium. Texas -7 at Mississippi State, 4:15, SEC Network. This game is going to be awesome. I just told you, Tennessee, they're in playoff mode. Texas is the same deal. Texas, if you want to make the college football playoff, we were picking you before the year to potentially win the whole darn thing. If you can just make the dance this year, I feel like that'd be an achievement in and of itself for how the year's gone and how y'all have looked. Starts now. It started post-Red River, but it's definitely on now with how you looked at Kentucky a week ago. Mississippi State, it's Texas, man. It's the same thing that we just said about Kentucky in that previous breakdown. I feel the same way from Mississippi State in this spot. Like, if you go beat that logo and you're throwing horns down after the game and you're talking about, yeah, the year wasn't the year that we necessarily, had envisioned for ourselves when it came to winning the SEC for Jeff Lebby and co. internally in Stark Vegas, in that building that is. But you go beat Texas, okay, we'll see. Now, I do think that for Steve Sarkisian, all the talk about him potentially, should he give up play calling duties, and is he the right guy for the job in Texas when it comes to being their OC and their head coach? No one's questioning him being the head coach, but the question of him should he call plays is, I think, a comical discussion in itself. I think Steve Sarkisian is going to come out with a game plan, dude. I think that he'll take all that talk, take all that chatter, and he will dial one up here against this Mississippi State defense, who, to be clear, isn't all that awesome. Like, Arch played pretty well against them last year. Does that mean anything in this game with a different Mississippi State defense? I don't know. My question for Texas is, can you just do what Florida did to them last week? Like, Florida ran for $172 at 5 yards a carry. Texas hasn't been great running the football, but if there was ever a spot to get right, you would think this would be it. On the road, just had a rather lackluster showing against a team that you should have beat by a lot more. Do you play with a certain edge about yourself? When you play with an edge, usually that shows up in the run game, and you'd like to see that happen here for Texas if they're going to win this game. Now, if you want to get to this game, if you're a Texas fan or you're a Mississippi State fan, you're just thinking about, man, do I really want to go to this game? I've been to a couple this year. I don't know. The best way to do that is game time. One, make sure you get to the game. Like, there's only so many games you get to if you're a college football fan throughout the course of this season. Get to the game. The best way to do that is getting there with game time. With game time, I've said it many times, I'll say it again. Know the view from your seat before you buy. Don't sit behind the Jumbotron. Don't sit behind some random pole. Know that you're getting a good view from your seat using game time. That's the first part of this. Second part of this, buy tickets last minute. Like, you can wake up on Saturday morning, go check ticket prices with the Game Time app. They'll have them for you in real time. Game Time, the best, safe, fast, effective, affordable way to buy tickets. It's how we're making sure we all get the games this year. So save yourself some money using Game Time, using code HARDCOUNT for your first purchase, okay? So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code HARDCOUNT, HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, all right? So swipe, tap, ticket, download the Game Time app today. Lowest prices, best tickets guaranteed using Game Time. So my question for the Bulldogs here, can you push the tempo? Because Texas hadn't been all that great offensively this year. I mean, Sark said as much. We're a defensive and special teams team. Colin Simmons came out and said his piece as to that being a thing that he wasn't subscribing to, but we're all watching the games, Colin. Texas haven't been that great moving the football. Can you put them in a spot where they got to chase points on the road? Blake Shapen, quarterback from Mississippi State, absolute dot dealer. Quietly now, too, two really good receivers, Anthony Evans and Brendan Thompson, across the country and just the SEC in general. Brendan Thompson is averaging 18 yards a catch. Both those cats had over 100 yards and they lost to Florida. So I'm not telling you that they're going to go out there and just take over the game, but I am saying if you can go ahead and start out, it's 13-0 at half, you force them out of their element. Also, no Michael Taft for Texas on the back end. Does that play a factor here? The last team to be able to take advantage of the vertical element of their offense against this Texas defense was Florida. We know how that worked out. There's a good time in the swamp. Is it a good time now with the folks ringing cowbells out there in Stark Vegas? Remains to be seen. So then that question kind of gets flipped on its head for Texas on the offensive side. Can Arch Manning manage this spot? I'm not saying can you go win the game. I'm not saying can you go for 3 bills and take over. Can you just manage the spot? Because I told you, I think there's some opportunity to run the football here against that Mississippi State defense. But Mississippi State as a defense has been opportunistic to say the least. They've turned over some quarterbacks that I would just say, quite frankly, are better, if not the same caliber as Arch Manning. Sam Leavitt, 2 picks. Joey Aguilar against this defense, 2 picks. Marcel Reed threw a pick. DJ Lagway in a winning effort threw 2 picks. So can Arch Manning avoid that turnover bug from hitting? If he can, you like your defense to hold serve. You like your run game to do something for you. But if he's giving the football away, we got problems and we got a game out there in Starkville. So I think Texas can run the football. I don't love the idea of Mississippi State getting after Arch Manning and have a great sack rate when it comes to affecting the quarterback. I also think desperate Texas here does matter. So I think Texas wins, but I think it's uncomfortable. I think you're watching that squirming. I don't think you feel great about the win. I think you're just saying, okay, win on the road in the SEC. We'll take it. Final score, 24-20. Texas wins. Mississippi State covers to ride the fence here a little bit, and I think it's a great game to watch, so I can't wait to be tuned in for that one. But that's how I feel about that game. Texas wins, State covers, in a barn burner out there in Davis Wade. So now we've reached that point in the week, man. You know it. You love it. It's time for our Week 9 Superlatives ahead of this weekend. Unpacking a number of categories, but I'm not doing them by myself. No. This is a joint operation here. Got the man, the myth, the legend. Your mother and your girlfriend, I hate to say it, it's her favorite producer, looking fresh today in the the Taz little hoodie, not a hoodie, sweater, looking fresh. Produced the hard count. Caden Smith. Caden, how we doing, brother?
We're doing great, man. A hell of an intro as always, and hell of a week of college football coming up here, man. It's, again, one of the weeks where people are like, oh, a little sleepy, not as many good games, but we all know these are the weeks where they deliver. So I'm excited for it, just like I'm excited for every other week we have.
It's going to be awesome, dude. The fact that you got some logos here that you're not used to seeing being ranked where they are, Missouri and Vandy's College Game Day, like I am lit up for that one. Let's start there where we always start for these things, man. Upset watch. What are you tracking here? I want to have you were talking before the show. We were talking before the show, and I was getting your take on this. You're like, hey, I got one that I feel good about. Got one I like. Tell the people where you're leaning here when it comes to the upset you're potentially watching when it comes to this weekend.
Yeah, for me, JD, it's a weird week. There's a lot of close spreads, which you love to see, and there's a lot of lopsided ones. I mean, there's some teams favored by 30-plus points. There's a lot of 2.5-point spreads, but when I was trying to find my upset, man, I looked no further than Northwestern going to Nebraska.
Ooh, okay.
Nebraska, according to BetMGM, favored by 7 points there. Northwestern, are we sure they're not good? Like, this is a team that only has 2 losses. They're to Oregon and Tulane, which are pretty good teams.
Yeah.
Have won the rest of their games. They're a defensive-minded team, JD. I'm trying to pull up the stats as far as what they're I'm positive.
Beat Penn State.
They're the 5th best team in the Big Ten when it comes to scoring defense, and they're only giving up 15 points a game. What did we just watch Nebraska do? Score 6 points against Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think are we sure the logos are different? Maybe the spread is different on this game. There's that part of it too. But I think Northwestern is uniquely equipped to actually beat this Nebraska team. And I think Nebraska was hearing about their head coach maybe going to Penn State. You get caught slipping to Minnesota. So maybe they refocus and they do their thing here, man. But I don't think Nebraska has been some kind of wagon. And I think Northwestern's been pretty surprising this year. So give me Northwestern upset watch. Looking at you, Nebraska. They're at home, so maybe the Husker faithful can will them to a win. But if they don't cover, man, I think they win.
I like the eye off the ball angle, too, for Nebraska. Like, they go and play Minnesota on a Friday night, and everyone's talking about rule to Penn State. And I'm like, okay, they're going to handle this. They're going to try and quiet that noise down a little bit. They're going to be locked. And they got playoff hopes on the line. Get boat raced by Minnesota. I like that, Kato. It's a good take, man.
Thanks,
I'm gonna roll on the other side of that Friday night matchup we saw last weekend with Nebraska and Minnesota. Minnesota is plus 8.5 at Iowa. That total is at a whopping 39.5. Minnesota just scored some points against Nebraska. I'm not saying Nebraska's a world beater defensively, but Iowa's barely beating a limping Penn State team. I don't know about Iowa, man. I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm not saying that I don't think Minnesota can't cover and win that football game. Now, it's in Kinnick, so maybe things get weird, but I think that's one to account for. I'm going to be greedy here and snag one more. Syracuse is at Georgia Tech. 17.5.
Oh.
Georgia Tech, I told you, man, they are that team that you got to respect the grit and the fact they haven't lost a game, but it does not look comfortable. It does not look fun. They are laboring through this marathon of a season, and you got Fran Brown on the other sideline. I don't like that if I'm Georgia Tech. So I don't know if I'd pick either of those outright, but I'm watching both those very, very closely this weekend, Cato.
You're going grit on grit there, man.
Grit on grit.
Syracuse has a unique opportunity to be a big-time spoiler this year. Like, I think they play several ACC teams that are going to try to come out clean, have some conference title hopes. I'm looking at the schedule now. Georgia Tech on there, Miami on there, Notre Dame on there. So Fran Brown, I think, is going to catch someone slipping, so that's never a bad choice. And I think, too, rowing the boat. When Minnesota gets a win, I'm not ashamed to admit that I go to their social media and I watch PJ Fleck crowd surf because it's one of the most electric things in college football. I want to do it for a day. Like, Minnesota should start an NIL kind of deal where you can come in on a day, you pay money, and you can just PJ Fleck run through the locker room and the team will just lift you up for the one time. It's the same way USC has people kind of run out the tunnel with them. Several teams do that. Have people crowd surf Fleck style, man. I think that would be big for their NIL dollars and their boosters.
Dude, I'll sign up tomorrow for that.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
I'm on a plane to the Twin Cities right now.
They're slapping his bald head. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, he's got cool kicks, too. You get a good look at those.
Well-dressed man, not afraid to just get in there with his boys and crowd surf. We love it. We love it.
I absolutely love that. Well, those are our upsets. What could get weird this weekend, Cato? What are you tracking here that might be a little bit weird and you're saying, wait, I wasn't really tracking that one quite as closely, but I got Matt Berry in my eardrums right now saying, game break, look out, we got so-and-so, barn burner, third quarter. Who you got?
Couple weird ones, man. I think it's a weird slate overall. A game you just previewed. I think Mississippi State hosting Texas can get weird. I think Arch's one of his best performances of his career was against this Mississippi State team last year when he was still very young, still getting his feet wet, but he looked good. They schemed stuff open. This Mississippi State team this year is night and day. I think the bottom of the SEC in general is just night and day. And you saw that last week when they went to Kroger Field and almost lost to Kentucky and went to overtime. I think Mississippi State's better than Kentucky. I think their home field advantage is better than Kentucky. I think this one gets weird for Texas and is just more of a back and forth game than we imagine. Also, I think Illinois going to Washington could get weird as well. I think like I said earlier this week, it's a weird stakes game. Both of these teams are low-key holding on for dear life to their playoff hopes, and this is a big kind of watershed moment, I think, for either of those teams. Illinois is coming off the bye after they got whooped up by Ohio State, has to travel all the way to Washington. Washington coming off of the Michigan game. Just a lot to be learned still, I think, by two teams we think are good, but are either going to separate themselves as far as the playoff conversation. Last one, Auburn going to Arkansas.
Yeah,
it's weird Arkansas's favored in this game, first of all, and I think things could get very weird for Hugh Freeze, as you mentioned before, after this game if they don't deliver. So I think that's just a weird situation with an interim head coach playing a coach that has his bun's a little toasty with the seat he's sitting in right now in the Plains.
Is Arkansas favored in that now?
2.5.
No kidding.
You can't go to the pig pen and get a win easy these days, man.
Interesting.
It's not easy.
I want to say Auburn opened as a favorite. I want to say it might have been Auburn minus 1.5, and then it swung back toward. Okay, interesting.
I think it's minus 2.5. Just a straight up. This is a team at home. We're favoring them.
Some line movement there. Okay, at the very least, it's moving.
Taylor Green and Petrino are scoring points, man. They're the best offense in the SEC right now as far as yards per game. So
unless I'm just off, and that opened as Arkansas minus 2.5, it's up to 1.5. Interesting, or up to opened to Arkansas minus 1.5, up to 2.5, favoring the Hogs. Regardless, the line's moving.
Yeah.
The line's moving. I like that. And also with the desperate Auburn team. Every Auburn game's been weird, too, so that's a great take when it comes to picking a game with them. Yeah. It's just been a bizarre place to be. I also had Texas Mississippi State down as my game that could get a little bit weird. I think that the battle for Paul Bunyan, man. Michigan State. Michigan, massive win over Washington. I already picked Michigan to win, so I don't think that they get weird to the point where they lose that game. But got to go to East Lansing. Aiden Childs a little bit mobile. They got some guys out there at Michigan State that if you find the matchup you like and you can make the matchup you like with the one Nick Marsh, there could be something there. So something to keep an eye on there. Rivalry games always get a touch weird too, so that's one that I'm keeping a pulse on. Must-see TV, though, for me, Cato. Oklahoma, Ole Miss. Mateer, Chambliss, Brent Venables versus Lane Kiffin. There's so many matchups in this game, from the quarterback duel I just mentioned to the coordinators to just the stakes in general. Two teams with a loss. The loser of this game is in we got to win out mode. Oklahoma, they still have to play Alabama. It's a situation where both teams in their playoff aspirations will be massively impacted after that one. Also, Trinidad Chambliss giving the filter of that Brent Venables defense we talked about already. That's going to be a lot of fun. So must-see TV for me. That coordinator duel, those quarterback duel, Ole Miss, Oklahoma will be electrifying.
Yeah, and I know you were a heavy advocate of the 4-team playoff, but the beauty of the 12-team playoff is that you get games like this that are must-see TV because they are pseudo-playoff matchups that mean a lot. And I think another game I have on my list for must-see TV is in our backyard, man. Missouri, Vanderbilt, two teams fighting for playoff stakes right now. Color matchup. Black and gold versus black and gold. Two tough quarterbacks, two mobile quarterbacks. That'll be fun. My number one, though, and I can't quit him, JD. Baylor, man. They go to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Sorsby versus Sawyer Robertson. What a quarterback matchup. Two electric guys. They might run up the score in that one. They're going to run up the scoreboard, the stat line. They're going to stuff the box score. I'm so excited to watch that quarterback matchup. The Big 12 never fails. I will always have a must-see Big 12 game, I swear.
So good.
And this is the one for me this week, man. This is an awesome game. Baylor, their record doesn't represent how good of a team they actually are. They're easily, I think, top 5 most watchable teams in college football right now. And Cincinnati, man, I mean, if you haven't watched Sorsby play after week 1, like I said earlier this week, the Alabama of the Big 12, where we should just forget about week 1 and watch what they've done every game after that, and they've looked phenomenal. So glad they're finally ranked and glad they get to prove it against a great Baylor team that's just super watchable and has a ton of weapons on offense.
You know, I almost put that on my things could get weird game because there's some discussion in the folks in Waco saying, is Dave Aranda really the right guy? We've had a couple different coordinator sets. He's kind of had his chance. If you're going to see desperate Baylor against a Cincinnati team that I picked to be your Big 12 title rep, that's going to be a lot of fun. So I think that's, one, extremely watchable, and two, could get weird, and for that reason is must-see TV. So we kind of check all those boxes there. Kato, I want to give you the floor to talk some Sickos Hour, man. It's going to be a pretty solid slate here when it comes to the Saturday night action, but what do you got tapped in for Sickos Hour for you?
First of all, I think you just gave a great idea. We should have a must-see weird game maybe, and that could just be the Big 12 game of the week, because that's kind of how the Big 12 is, right? It's a must-see weird television. Like last week, BYU versus Utah was my favorite game we watched. You got Bear Bachmeier looking like no other quarterback I've ever seen, wearing 47, jumping over dudes, running dudes over. The 400-pound guy on Utah's getting check down passes and running with the rock. Like the Big 12 never disappoints.
That was my things to get weird game, actually.
Yeah,
so there we go.
It did deliver.
Check
but
the box.
Sickos Hour, man, there's only one late one here that really gets me going, and it is Colorado taking on the aforementioned Utah Utes. Big spread on that one. It's a double-digit one. I can't remember off the top of my head.
13.5?
Yeah, like I think you mentioned it, man. Devon Dampier, I mean, the stock I bought very early, and it's a stock that is slowly going down and down and down. Can't think of a better spot from the bounce back, though, against this Colorado team. But Caden Salter, Devon Dampier, late at night, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
If it's the only show in town, I'll watch it. And I think that last week, Florida State and Stanford delivered. So I think I'm not down on Sickos Hour. I apologize to Sickos Hour for doubting you, and for that. For those reasons, I have all my chips in on this Colorado game. I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's a regional great backdrop. Salt Lake City, the uniforms for Deion and the boys. Kyle Whittingham, kind of the rookie and the vet of the conference, man. Give me that one, man.
That'll be fun, dude. I like
fun game.
You sold me on that one. That's gonna be if I needed to be sold on a game. Like if you're thinking about watching that game and you were on the fence now, Cato just gave you every reason to go watch it. I'm gonna zag a little bit here. Can I interest you in some Friday night Sickos activities? People are saying, hey, let's go watch a movie. Let's go to the haunted house or whatever people are doing right now for the October season. Friday night, you got Cal at Virginia Tech. A coachless Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's favored by 4.5.
Why?
Jaron Kivai Sagabatelli out there going to sling the pill a little bit. I don't know. Does that travel from the West Coast all the way out to Blacksburg, Virginia? Remains to be seen. We're talking about Cal and what they were doing during the bye week. Sagabatelli's talking about trying some wild candy when they were out there, and I believe it was the Chinatown of where they were hanging out at during their bye week. All I'm saying is Cal, Virginia Tech, the fact it's a conference game, to me still I can't wrap my mind around properly. Ohio State playing Oregon in a conference game, cool. I could live with that a year ago. It's weird, but yeah, I can kind of settle in with it. Michigan, USC, weird, I can settle in with it. Cal and Virginia Tech as a conference game in the ACC, to me, is just still toothpaste and orange juice levels of weird and uncomfortable. It'll be Sickos-ish activities. Friday night, Sickos Hour is on and popping with those two teams, Cato.
Yeah, I think Cal is just running away with the Sickos Hour belt. I mean, they're always there for us. Friday, Saturday, late at night. Your bets didn't hit. You need one more to hit. Just put your money in the hands of Cal. If it doesn't work out, it's at least going to be fun, and you'll have no regret about it, trust me. So I agree with it there. I watched their game versus Duke. I watched their game versus UNC. They're a good watch, man. And Virginia Tech, again, one of those weird teams where you fire your coach and all of a sudden the interim comes in and starts going to work. Like, it is a theory that I think needs to be studied. Ever since UCLA did what they did, I think there have been notes taken around the country. So, yeah, man, they have 2 straight losses, but Georgia Tech's one of them. You can't really give them any crap about that. So we'll see if they can bounce back here at home, man. Blacksburg, that's a long trip, man. Cal has some long trips to take this year.
Dude, just the frequent flyer miles you're racking up.
You'd like to think,
Cal.
right?
I mean, you could go some nice places this offseason with the flyer miles you have accumulated. Probably use those miles to go recruit some players, but it is what it is. Cato, great stuff, man. Great week. Week 9 is going to be legendary, man. Appreciate you as always.
For sure, man.
It's that man. Best dressed man, too, in the sports media game as it pertains to that sweet sweater my guy was wearing. If you're listening on podcast, you're missing out. But, 2, if you're listening on podcast, go ahead and subscribe to the feed so you don't miss a podcast here going forward. Hey, man, it's going to be a big week. Going to take all of us, all right? lock arms, hunker down, say no to the pumpkin patch. If you got to be somewhere on Saturday, mobile viewing, YouTube TV, the apps, whatever you got to use, charge it up, get the Wi-Fi, all that stuff, lock in. You only get so many. We appreciate y'all making this show what it is. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you subscribing if you haven't already. For Cato on the ones and twos and the microphone for myself, JD PicKell, we love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We'll see y'all.